Kia ora, New Zealand. Welcome to Sweet Chain Live. My name's Matt Drake. This is episode 80. 80, Brady. We are hurtling towards three figures at a rate of knots, and it's going well. So, look, how are you this evening?
I'm well. Let's go with well and humble. Let's go that way.
Look, first up, many congratulations. Spoiler alert, if you weren't aware, earlier on this evening, Brady was elected as chairman of NZDG. So many congratulations, Brady. Your work begins here, right?
Yep. Yeah. Time to get to work. I want my actions really to speak the loudest over the next 10 months. So let's see if I can, rebuild the trust and, increase a bit of unity around the country over the next 10 months. So definitely looking forward to it. Definitely. Thank you to all those viewers and people listening and that kind of stuff. I'm very humbled and honored to represent you on the board, and I'm looking forward to the next 10 months. So thank you.
And it's going to be pretty transparent as well, right? Because, anything happens, people aren't happy, they can just message the show during the comments and we're going to read it and you're going to be on the screen every week. So it's going to be a very visible, you're going to be very visible during that time, perhaps. Different to.
Do we need to start having like a chairman's corner section of the show, so that way like people can like ask me each week, You get one question to ask your chairman.
maybe weekly might be a little bit ambitious. I'm not sure things move quite that quickly, but maybe every quarter perhaps we could run something similar to that. So
I'm in the public sector now. Yeah, I got to get used to that pace, right?
That's it. That's right. Right. Okay. So we've got quite a bit to get through today. So first up, we've got hot scores from around the country, and then we're going to dive into the women's global event. And do a little bit of a review of the tournaments that happened there. We've got some highlights, some live highlights. Well, not some live highlights that happened last weekend, but some highlights to show you. We're going to go through some of the results and have a bit of a chat about it. We've also got there's been a lot of international news that's been sort of kicking around recently. Including a kind of, well, I haven't seen one like this for quite a while, a suspension to a well-known player, which we'll cover. So look out for that. And of course, friend of the show, Paige Pierce, has got a new documentary coming out a little bit later on. I think it's today, actually. It launches, I think it's today, but in the States, so sometime then. And that launches today, or at least tickets go on sale today, I think, and it premieres next week. And so we'll be talking a little bit about that also. So let's start off in Invercargill for our hot scores. First up, Bray Marsden. Fellow board member Brady hitting 13 down at Invercargill. Well done to Bray. Over to Chingford, and it's Josh Groot, with 5 under par in Dunedin. Across the city to Brockville, and it's Tom McKay who hits 6 under par. Over in the Gardens, Morgan Hartfeld hits 13 under par for the hot score of the week. And over at Tucker Beach, Peter McKay hits 6 down. Across to Wanaka, Ely Point, and it's Quinn Hartley with 2 under par, and it's Ben Quinn who hits 11 under par at Lismore. So the Quinn's doing it. Jelly Park, it's Isaac Sassanuma Howard hitting 9 under par, and at Queen's Park Reserve, John T. Burns hits 5 under for the hot round of the week. Neighbour course, Brooker out, Ben Schicker takes it out with 3 under par. Up to Taylor River, and Dave Nash hits the hot score for the week with a +1. Brady, take us through the north.
Through the north, starting as ever here in Barronport in the hills, Sweet Chain's own Brett Carlisle coming in with a hot round this week at Social. 5 under par. We'll take it for him. On the foreshore, Hikoikoi Reserve, Keith Thurlow, our national champion for MA3, comes in at 2 under par for the hot round. And out at Harcourt Park, it was pretty quiet up the hut. It's been a pretty wet weekend, but let's shout out to Dave Bell with the +6 this week for the hot round at Harcourt Park. Up in Palmy, the mighty Manawatu Linkletter Reserve, Arthur Graham and Ephraim Russell come in at -5 this week, taking out the hot round. Lakeside, Topo, and Spa Park, we got Steve Lawson coming in at -3. Looking good for that thermal throwdown coming up here. Over in Taranaki, Maryland's Reserve, Brian Rollins comes in with 2 hot rounds this week, both at 2 under par. Up in Hastings and Flaxmere, Luke Edwards takes a +3 in the main course. So good to see Flaxmere is getting some love these days. In Tauranga, McLaren's Falls, Vinnie Wilson shoots 9 under par. Smoking hot. Great to see him on form going into the extreme here in September. Lastly, up in the Big Smoke, Henderson coming out of the woodwork, Patricio Contreras with a 12 under par on the full 20 horse at Henderson. Great shooting, Patricio. Good to have you back. And at Woodhill Red, Richard Watterson and Sean McKenzie finished the hot rounds this week with a 2 under par.
Wow, some hot rounds there, especially at Tauranga. I think Vinnie Wilson's price on taking out at least a podium spot at Tauranga was just shortened by several points with that kind of performance.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do like hot rounds factor into power rankings at all, or like
they don't, but and I'd have to check where Vinny is on the power rankings. I suspect he's top 30 now.
Okay.
But I can check that during the show. And actually, Tauranga will be one of the first tournaments where you actually be able to get prices on various people to perform well at tournaments. So we're going to the analytics team and the sports entertainment team here at Sweet Chain Music are combining to provide you with some pre-tournament odds for the events coming up. So look out for that. Right, now, we had a huge tournament, or 2 huge tournaments at the weekend, right? A couple of years ago.
One huge tournament?
Well, yeah, kind of one huge tournament, I guess, with lots of being played in lots of different locations. Now, a couple of years ago, if you got 48 people to Harcourt Park to play a sanctioned disc golf tournament, right, you'd probably think, oh, that's fairly standard, right? Like, I think 2020 or 2019, they had 54, and then maybe the year before it was 30 something. 48 ladies turned out on Saturday just gone to play sanctioned disc golf at Harcourt Park as part of the women's global event. Brady, both you and I were there. Wow.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was more than 48, my friend, with the women, with the photographers, with the caddies, with the moms. Yeah, totally. Like, oh my goodness. I remember there was one card that I almost think had as many people like as spotters and like walking along with the card, like their own personal little gallery, than was actually playing on the card. It was incredible.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And it was incredible. It was incredible to see. We had people from as far away as Invercargill coming up. Invercargill and Dunedin brought up a good contingent, as well as many local ladies who, and you know, the thing that which astounded me quite a lot about it was at the beginning of the tournament, during the players' meeting, I asked everybody, quick show of hands, if this is your first disc golf tournament, right? Whoom. The whole loads of people put their hands up, and there's 1 or 2 people who turn up to every event, going like, "Oh, I'm a little bit outnumbered here." It was incredible, absolutely brilliant to see. Really, really, really great, and some great disc golf played as well. Some really, really hot disc golf being played both in Wellington and in Auckland. Auckland, they had a great event as well. 53 women competed in Auckland, so in all, over 100 ladies representing New Zealand in the women's global event, which was absolutely fantastic. And when we say global event, it is a global event, and the reason is because your performance in the global event, although for many people it was this is a new kind of thing for me, and I'm here to have a good day out. For the more competitive players, there was a competitive element where they could compete against many people across the world. I don't know if you saw some of the results, Brady.
I'd seen a few. You know, like there was, yeah, you know, like I know a few ladies from Auckland had done well and finished in like top 20 or top 30. Overall, right. I think like That's Michaela, right. who won FA3, was like 23rd or something like that here in Wellington for her division. Yep. You found some stats on a junior though up in Auckland, didn't you?
That's right. I'll go through some of the top results from the New Zealand disc golfers. So Rebecca Bennett up in Auckland, who is competed in the 50 plus, the amateur 50 plus division, finished 11th in the world with her round up in Auckland. Just going to see if I can find the round actually, so it's maybe a bit easier to see. So Rebecca Bennett shot an 838 tournament average, which was about 50 points higher than her rating. So very well done to Rebecca. She finished 11th overall, 50 plus. Up to in FA1, Charlotte Dunkley, who we had on the show last week to talk about the women's global event, she finished 8th in FA1. Right, FA1, massively shot a 911 rated tournament. Sorry, she didn't finish 8th. I'm doing a disservice. She finished 7th in FA1, and that's against 364 players worldwide. So very well done to Charlotte for shooting a huge round there up in Auckland. And then you got Fiona Menzies. Okay, experienced player, been playing for a long time in 60 plus, finished second in the world in her division of FA 60 plus, shooting an 857 or 858 rated round. And we also got news that Sarah Wadsworth, a name that you may not know, and the reason why you may not know it is that she competed in the FJ8 division, in the under 8s division, right? And in that division, she came second second in the world. So absolutely fantastic performance by Sarah, shooting a 571 rated round up in Auckland. Absolutely superb. So very well done to Sarah. Now, Sarah's dad actually got in contact, and we've got a little. He's behind. I think he's heavily associated with T-Box Media. So let's just see if I can get some. Right, here we go. We're going to play a little clip here because we've actually got some footage of Sarah's game or Sarah's tournament. So here we go. Just going to play a clip. But if you're keen to see the rest of it, then the YouTube details are down below. So yeah, here we go. I mean, that's ludicrous.
Yeah.
She can be my doubles partner any day.
Yeah.
Good girl.
Look at that.
Matt, she might have better form than you.
I don't think it's a might at all. I mean, that's absolutely crazy, isn't it? I mean, absolutely brilliant. Look, if you want to see the rest of that video, there's plenty of it. It's about 8 minutes in total. Go and follow Little Miss Disc Golf over on YouTube. Little Miss Disc Golf. Give her a subscribe and ring the bell so that you get notifications of all the future drops, because someone to watch in the future. Absolutely. I mean, that's great to see. And love the she's throwing one of those lightweight diamonds, Brady. They are money, I tell you. I reckon as soon as she started throwing, I thought, I know what that is. It's one of those lightweight diamonds from Latitude. Absolutely brilliant. And her form, like you say, is on point. Absolutely on point. Comes out flat, nice distance, bit of flex, great. So well done to Sarah.
Even Dylan here saying, like, it's not just driving; she knows how to putt too. So
yeah, look, and if she's in FJ8 division, she's going to be competing in the juniors in 10 years' time. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. So
it's like what? One of the number one players in the country, right? Levi Stout, is still playing in the junior division, just bumped up to, what is it, 997 rated this week with the new players update. So it's like, if he had been throwing discs when he was her age, I can only imagine by the time that, she gets, if she keeps at it, bright future ahead of her for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like, and obviously this has been going on in the States for a little bit longer than it has in New Zealand, but we seem to be getting a little bit more to the point where, like, kids of players start playing when they're like super young. And some of those, more and more of those kids now are becoming very good. And it just takes time for that to happen, right? And numbers to build and whatever else. And it won't be long before we start getting 18-year-olds, regular 18-year-olds. I mean, not just like one or two, who are capable of competing at the very highest level. And I really do believe that there's a great future there. So Sarah, keep plugging away, keep practicing, keep doing that field work and practicing your putting. It's paying off. Second in the world. Absolutely fantastic. Right. Where are we going to go now? Now, you might have seen this. We're going to move on to some international news now. Brady, I don't know if you saw this at the European Open. Did you? There was obviously lots of things that happened. Eagle took it out, but in the MPO division. But there was a certain incident which also happened, which was quite interesting. Did you see it?
Was this when the guy slipped in the fairway and threw it directly into the crowd? That one?
No, but I did see him do that, and then I also saw a video of the same guy throw it into a car. Like,
Oh yeah, on T1, he throws it into the archway and it like ricochets off into the car.
You do not want to be that guy. I mean, as someone who's hit a car playing disc golf unintentionally, it's actually a really not a nice feeling, especially when it's not your own. Right. Anyway, but no, it's actually a different incident. It's this one here that we're talking about, and I'd like to just get your thoughts on it. But we'll just play it.
You got a clip for me?
Yeah, I do.
Things happened on the 18th. Just a few months ago, Nico Castro will be called for a time violation here.
So he was out of bounds off the tee. So this was his third. We ended up seeing his par putt, which he missed.
Right.
So what happens here?
He gets called for a time
Before this round, so we have a penalty.
What?
We have a penalty.
Why?
Excessive time.
Why?
He chose.
Step away from me. Step back.
Nico, that's not good.
It's oh well, that happened.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that.
Kettle Jones on.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. Nate Doss summing up. Well, that just happened. So, right, what are your thoughts?
I about what? Like,
Well, look, okay.
Do I approve of what he did? Do I not
No.
approve of what he did?
Of course. Okay. So let's just talk about the situation that happened. Shortly afterwards, Nikko was disqualified from the tournament. I don't think many people probably had a problem with that. And even Nikko didn't either. He came out afterwards and apologized and said, actually, it's probably fair. The news this week is, though, he's subsequently been banned from presumably PDGA sanctioned events for 9 months, right? Which will take him all the way down to like May of next year. So, I mean, and that's the news now, right? So, what do you think that 9 months is the right punishment for a transgression, as we just saw?
Ooh, well, I guess I have to caveat this with I am familiar with the Bradley Williams incident from 2 years ago. Are you familiar with that?
No, talk us through it for anyone who's sort of new to the sport.
Yeah, so Bradley Williams, who most recently won, was it Idlewild?
Yep.
So like he's back on tour, and arguably is still an incredible player with some super smooth forms. He had some incidences, I guess, on the course of just altercations or miscommunications or that kind of stuff. So he had some poor sportsmanship during one event, and then a few months later, while he was on probation, had another like kind of poor sportsmanship form. And so for that, he was suspended, I believe, for 2 years, 18 months, 24 months from sanctioned events, which is crazy for a considerably, I would argue, like less offensive than kind of this like well-documented like Nikko incident. And so, like everyone kind of knows, we've discussed on the show in the past about Nikko and excessive time and self-regulating when it comes to sports, especially disc sports. And so, like the official was completely within his right to call Nikko on time. Like Nikko overreacted, which he came out and apologized for. His sponsor Clash Discs has already moved away from him. I'm really happy to see that Gateway has actually decided to stick with and stay with Nikko. And I really enjoy their stance on it. You can read that on their like Facebook and their social media pages that they believe they are a family run organization. If for those who know about them or may not, Gateway Discs, there who supply Nikko's putters. But they're standing behind him because they're like, look, he can change. Do I think 9 months is enough time? I would argue no. Personally, I personally would have gone potentially 12.
Right.
I think it's really interesting because also have you, just for it has been classified as far as I know. I need to read a little bit more about like the nuances of it, that it's a class A crime under the PDJ disciplinary actions. So there is, for those who are familiar or may not, there are different classes of like infractions when it comes to the PDJ. And so, yeah, minimum they say for a class A is 18 months. And so the idea that they've only given him half of that seems really interesting. Maybe it's because he's a first offense. I don't know. Like, what are your kind of thoughts on the whole suspension stuff?
So when you look at the video, right, I think he, and actually I'm going to, Paul Macbeth makes an interesting point on this, which we'll talk about in a second. The Nikko, the guy calls a time violation on him, and look, I think we're all aware of the time violations that go on. And actually, you know, if you want a bit of a laugh, go to a Small Bore Outlaw YouTube channel. They produce kind of lots of kind of funny disc golf videos, and one of them is 10 minutes of Nikko making 9 putts. So you can put that on, and it's quite amusing. Shout out to Ben Willake for putting me onto that channel. So it's great fun. Go and follow that YouTube channel. So his time wasting is well documented. I did get the feeling, honestly, like the guy who was calling it was sort of out to get him a little bit. Like, I kind of got the feeling that the guy knew ahead of time, Nikko's coming along. He takes a long time. If he does, I'm going to call him on it. And it just seemed a little bit premeditated to me. And I don't know whether that influenced the decision. And obviously, we know that Nikko's quite a hot-headed player, and can get very emotional, very passionate about the play. And I mean, the stress he would have been under, given the fact that it's a major, it's his first major with his new sponsors. It could well be. He's and so, you know, that could be not helping the situation. And I think that the guy was kind of asking for it. I mean, neither of them then dealt with it very well. Nikko didn't need to react in the way he did, and the guy could have dealt with it differently. He could have said, time violation, I've given you a time violation, I'm now just going to walk away. But he didn't. He kind of stood his ground a little bit. I think Paul Macbeth makes a similar point in his review of it, which then caused some controversy. So I don't know. Is 9 months enough? Given the 24 months, you said 24 months for Bradley Williams, eh?
So he was, let me double check. No, so Bradley Williams, it was an 18-month suspension.
18 months. See, that's so. Yeah, I don't know. I think 9 months seems a little bit, seems perhaps a little bit excessive to me. Seems a bit excessive.
Well, like one of the things that I would like to know, so like, because we've discussed it before of this, like disc golf is a self-officiating sport. And even for majors, for the most part, there aren't officials like on the course. Like there might be like at tournament HQ, but typically they're not out with players, you know, like, and arguably I've not been to any of the Disc Golf Pro Tour events. So, you know, like, and I've not been to the European Open, so I can't speak for those. But, you know, like of the events that I have been to of a larger caliber, there are officials, but they're not on the course. So, you know, the idea of in what capacity. So like normally in disc golf, you call someone else on a time violation, right? It comes from the card, your card mates. And typically it needs to be, a lot of violations need to be seconded. Like a foot fault needs to be seconded, or, you know, like the idea of even the like time violation, it's still like a courtesy. So the idea of like being told, oh, hey, you know, that, you know, like, please be mindful of your time. You know, like if this happens again, you know, like I'll have to call you for a courtesy violation. You know, like in that idea of like a warning. So there's kind of a lot off the camera that like we don't see, like what was the official's capacity for like ruling on in that moment. Like theoretically Nico would have had to have been advised before, as far as I know. And yeah, like Paul Macbeth kind of brings up a good point of, okay, if he's an official, should he be de-escalating the situation? Like, yeah, he kind of like, struts over, like holds out his phone, is like, boom, like time violation. And then just kind of like stands there, and then like, yeah, there's like that little bit of a stand down, like, and you think that it's okay, but Nico's a passionate kind of guy. So, that little bit, that half a second long linger, that, like just looking at him the wrong way, and here's Nico, hole 18, final round. It's a major. He just threw out of bounds again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, of all the times to get into someone's face, like that's not it. So it's really interesting that if we as a sport are pushing for officials to go and this is this premier event, it's a major event, and this is what's going on, is like from both sides, it doesn't look very good. Of like, one, here we are as professional athletes throwing a tantrum, throwing our toys out the cot, right? But then here's an official who doesn't, like you said, seem to be acting very professional at the same time. So it's like, who's like, no one was the bigger man. Arguably someone needed to be, but no one was.
It's an interesting one because a lot of disc sports are self-officiated. I obviously played Ultimate for many years prior to disc golf, and even at the last big tournament I played in, which was the World Masters in 2018, you didn't have officials so much as you had observers, and the observers would they would replicate the hand signals of players so that everybody could see what was being done, and they would time things like how long you had to pull the disc at the beginning of a point, right? So they'd make sure that no more than 45 seconds or whatever was taken in between points, and timeouts were of a particular time and all that kind of stuff. But if it came to contact, either on the disc or one or on a throwing foul, they didn't call that. Now, it's interesting because for a long time, and I still think this in Ultimate, I think there should be officials. Now, this is and the opinion here is you don't need to be too far down the purist spectrum to absolutely hate that idea, right? And I would argue it as this, right? I think that having officials legitimizes the sport more. It's not required, but it legitimizes it more. It takes away any kind of thing that could have got in the way between the sport appearing in larger sports organizational events, right? So Olympics, for example. And also, it creates controversy. It creates controversy in the same way that if you watch, how many times have we watched a rugby game or a football match or Brady, I don't know, an ice hockey game, and or baseball probably. And,
baseball, thank you. Like baseball, right? American football, come on.
The official has called something and everybody disagrees with it. Everybody's like, nah, not even close. And everyone's shouting at the TV and throwing their popcorn at the TV. And yeah, okay, you get a VAR, whatever, right? But there are some instances, right, where, and we've all seen it. We've all seen instances. You can probably remember one now where you were shouting at the TV because the officials made an absolutely dreadful call, right? If the players are officiating, you don't get those moments, right? You don't. So I think a bit of controversy in sports is part of the appeal of watching live sports, right? Do you disagree? Do you think sports? You think that sports are more entertaining when there's less controversy? Because that's the point I'm making: is that sports are more entertaining when they're more controversial, and by adding in an official who's fallible and can make mistakes, I think adds controversy, and that adds to the game's appeal.
That
Okay,
is a
go for it.
fascinating
Go for it.
idea.
Go for it.
Well, no, like just that idea of well, and again, this is my American take on things, right? For the idea of like, right, I understand as an athlete that like referees or officials are fallible. They're human, right? They make mistakes. They can't always see the play, make subjective calls, you know. And again, I also come from a like pre-instant replay, like sports appreciation. So that idea of like when you made a call and it was a rubbish call, like you had to live with it, you know, and like arguably I have seen with the amount of like officials and well, referees in the States, there people have lost their careers over making bad calls. Like it's classic baseball. You gave a great example, you know, like, is it a strike? Is it a foul? You know, it's a little easier in cricket, right? Like you hit the wickets, you know, like
Well, I would argue, I'd argue differently actually with the LBW calls could be very difficult for an umpire to tell. And but no, go on. I think football's a good one. I think if you look at because things get very passionate and players get very childish when things go against them. But I think that's part of the theatre, part of the kind of pageantry, if you will, of the sport. So yeah.
Well, and I guess it'd be really interesting. Perhaps, you know, like this will be a longer take for another show. That idea of, for me, especially with disc golf, and it's one of the appeals of disc golf, is that the athleticism, the skill involved in it, you know, and that idea of, right, like in, say, professional sports, things such as rugby, American football, basketball, you know, like you're right, there is controversy, there is drama. There's this like entertainment value to it. But there's a reason why the Olympics are watched more than like any other sport on television, especially around the world. You know, and arguably and I would say that there's probably less controversy. Feel free to disagree with me. Like at the Olympics, for the most part, like the Olympics are for the most part, everything runs pretty smoothly. And it's all about like who's the best in the world at whatever it is that they're doing, right? And there's not so much controversy.
Yes, correct. And because everybody who's competing is let me rephrase. A lot of people who compete in the Olympics are competing in almost in their kind of isolation, right? So they might be in the same race as somebody else, but ultimately it's the time that's going to dictate whether they win or not whether and so I think that when you've got a individual sport, then yes, like in the Olympics where it's like who can run the fastest or who can throw this spear the furthest, right? Then I think you're absolutely right. You want it to be athletic prowess which wins out, and you don't want there to be a controversial call by an official which interrupts that. When it's a team sport such as rugby, where it's not a particular person's like individual skill that's to test, it's a team's dynamic to play a game against an arbitrary set of rules, then I think that the opinions, and I'm using that word very deliberately, opinions of an official form part of that. And that's if you simply look at sport in isolation as a test of human athletic prowess, say, right? And you don't consider the sport that as an entertainment value, as something which has utility as entertainment, which I think it does. I think it does, and both in disc golf, it's growing. Many other sports, it's already there. And for many people, watching live sports is entertainment, not a judgment on the part of the audience of who's best. I've come here to be entertained.
And so like so let's use disc golf as an example in the European Open. Like, are you watching the European Open to be entertained?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I almost don't care who wins, right? What I want to see at the European Open, or indeed at any tournament that I want to see things I don't expect to happen. right? So whether that's incredible prowess in terms of athletic prowess, could be that.
Mhm.
It could be that someone comes from behind right at the end and pulls out an eagle on hole 18 and everyone goes, that's mental, and they win it,
Kristen Chittar and D-Glow last year.
Yeah, right. I want to see things that I don't expect to see. I want to be like, oh my God, I did not see that coming. That is brilliant. That's what I want to see. Now, maybe it's the inner WWE fan inside me that's kind of doing that, right? Because, I did do like a bit of wrestling. But anyway, that's the way I see it. That's the way I see it. I'm less concerned by going, this person's the best because they won this tournament. I'm more about is it entertaining or not? Do you have a opposing view? Different? Do you think different to that?
Yeah. So yes, like me personally, like I'm not necessarily watching disc golf to be entertained. Like I watch disc golf in most sports like I watch the Olympics. Like I want to see that athleticism. I want to see the best in the world. Like I want to see feats of like superhuman feats. You know what I mean? Like I love Paul Macbeth going on beast mode when his putter is so hot it can never miss. Like when he shot the 18 down at D-Glow, his first perfect round, and he made that putt and talked about his mentality of making that putt on 18 to shoot the perfect round of 18 under par, is mind blowing for me. Like that's what I want to see. Like I love racing and races for that exact reason.
Racing, just to clarify, racing.
I'm
like car racing or horse racing or person racing, chariot racing. What do you?
Let's go all of the above.
All of the above. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Just like racing in general. Like car racing is probably the easiest to talk about. And like I grew up on NASCAR in the States where you just drive around in a circle. And then anyway. But like the idea of, like you show up, you put your best car on the track, right? And like I'll put my best car on the track and we'll race and see who's better, right? Better driver, better car, like that kind of stuff, or performance enhancing drugs if you are Stewart. But like that idea of like where it's a race, like where it's me versus you, like in that idea of, which is really of right, like it's like in disc golf, like I want to, when I win, I want to win on my best day against someone else's best day. You know what I mean? And like, there's talks of that of, like, oh, hey, look, like, so-and-so like didn't win. Like, so like someone else like lost it. You know what I mean? Like they didn't bring their A game. People have talked about it with the All Blacks as of late of like, oh, well, if that was the All Blacks of 98, well then, and it's that kind of that. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to hear that like you watch a bit more to be entertained. And necessarily for like, that kind of like sportsmanship.
And it actually happened. It happened here in Wellington at Nationals, right? Where you had Levi leading for the majority of the tournament, and then Jay overtakes him with like 4 holes to go. And I'm sat there going, Jay makes this putt from like the edge of the circle on hole 14, I think it is.
12.
Was it 12?
Hole 4. Our normal hole 4.
Normal hole 4. Like,
middle earth hole 12.
Like absolutely clutch putt down the hill from edge of circle that everyone's like, he's not going to run this. Or no, actually, no, people aren't thinking that. People are thinking, I wouldn't run this. But Jay steps up, bang. And then it's like, this is now game on. And I think that kind of thing, that's what makes watching sports entertaining, is when people do things you don't expect them to.
Well, so I guess my good question to kind of like wrap this up is, I guess twofold. Let's break this down. So like one, do you feel on this topic, do you feel disc golf would benefit from having officials?
Yes, disc golf would benefit from having officials. Yes.
Cool. And then 2, based on the whole like Nikko and like that kind of stuff, do you think 30 seconds is an adequate amount of time to have to throw your shot?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
yes, I do.
Jeremy Colling, for those, like to throw a wrench in the work, Jeremy Collings thinks you should get 2 extensions per round.
Yeah, I read about this. Like you can extend your 30 seconds. I mean, how more complicated? You don't need to make it that complicated. Who's counting that for a kickoff? Didn't you take one of those on hole 2? No, I used it on hole 4. No. Doesn't need to be that complicated, right? 30 seconds is bags of time. If you've stood next to your disc and waited 25 seconds before taking your run up and pro, it's a hell of a long time. I mean, come on. Anyway, 30 seconds is enough time. Anyway, right, let's move on because we seem to be laboring this point.
Waffling. I was going to say, speaking of controversy, have you heard about like the whole like Paul Brodie beef?
Talk us through it. I saw a response from Brody, but then I was like hurriedly trying to find what the a bit more details and probably couldn't. So take us through it.
Well, there's like a little bit of history, I guess. So like they're both sponsored by Discraft. First of all, Paul McBeth and Brodie Smith are the two people we're talking about for those listening. And the idea that, right. So most recently, Brody has come into defense of the PDGA basically and against Paul. So Paul has defended Nico and Nico's actions on Instagram and his stories, like talking about how, and watching the video again is very interesting based on like what Paul did. There's a YouTube video reviewing this whole thing with the stories because you can't see Paul's stories anymore, by the way. But basically Paul McBeth is like, look, Nico's offense and what actually happened is not a class A according to the PDGA sanctioning. And so it's kind of like, oh, well, Nico should appeal this because, like the PDGA has gone a bit too far, especially for like a first offender, which after watching the video again, definitely has merit. And, and again, here's Paul arguably pushing the professionalism of the event. Big contracts, like big names, all eyes watching, like that kind of stuff. Brody, on the other hand, with his ultimate background to that kind of stuff, is definitely coming, is like, what are you talking about, Paul? Like, Nico is in the wrong. Like, good on Nico for getting the slap on the wrist and getting that. And so, yeah, but like people have started to draw in this. Is there bad blood between them? Because Paul and Brody used to like sit on the like board of directors for Foundation Disc Golf, a retailer like YouTube channel in the States. But Paul, of course, stepped away as he started the Paul McBeth Foundation because he just doesn't have enough time being a player and running a foundation. And so they're like, oh, is there this like bad blood between the two of them? Like, what have you heard about this little drama?
Well, very little. All I can say is that Brody strikes me as the kind of person who's very sure of himself, his opinions, and certainly won't shy away or be put off by the fact that McBeth's the best that's ever played the sport, and so we'll just come out and say it. Also, he's an incredibly canny businessman, as well as being an incredible athlete. So I think whatever's happened, it'll be interesting to see what goes on. I think it'd be a shame if there was any kind of bad blood between them because they had a good thing going for a while, I'm sure, and certainly nobody got as many signature discs as Brodie Smith did in his first 2 years or whatever. And so, I did hear that though. The point that Ethan's making is that Brodie's blocked Paul on social media, which I think is a bit childish, to be honest, but there you go. It's people, you can do that.
Cancel culture at its best, right?
Yeah, right. But yes,
well,
anyway.
This brings up a good point that I've seen kind of trickle here into New Zealand a little bit. So like kind of speaking of teams and sponsored players and that kind of stuff. So yeah, you like have this like Foundation Disc Golf thing, so you have Brodie Smith and Paul McBeth are I don't know, I guess properly sponsored players, like with big contracts with Discraft, right? And then you have kind of this like little team of Foundation Disc Golf, right? And like the Bogey Bros. And originally there was a lot of content that came out with Brodie Smith and Paul McBeth, like back in the day. But now it's Brody and Ezra. So like Ezra Aderhold is another Discraft sponsored player for those who may not know. But there's very little like Brody and Paul content being produced anymore, which is kind of interesting with them both being very large players. And so which kind of for me brings up this point of what does it mean to be sponsored by, say, a retailer, by a YouTube channel, by a manufacturer? So, like, is there weight to that? Is there not weight to that? But then also this team aspect. So it's like, oh, well, they're both team Discraft, like you and I, team Sweet Chain, team Small Planet Discs, team Jump Disc Golf, like what are,
team Jump. Yeah.
Like what are your thoughts when it comes to, like, what does it mean to be on a team? Does it have weight? Is it special? Like seeing all this kind of stuff pop up, it's like, oh, well, everyone's on a team. So like, yeah, what are your thoughts on teams in disc golf?
I think, look, if a group of people want to get together, give themselves a name, wear some t-shirts and say, we're, I don't know, LFG Disc Golf is a new one that I learned about on in Wellington on the weekend. Then brilliant. I'd say fantastic. That's great. I mean, and it's no different to people entering a team sport, right? It's just a bunch of people with a similar set of values, a similar set of interests, and they happen to like each other, who are going out and playing more disc golf, and they want to rep the same. They want to represent themselves and each other by wearing similar apparel and having the logo plastered. I say it's great. It's absolutely great if people want to do that. What I'd really like to see actually is a kind of team versus team competition, right? So I'd love to see that in a more kind of I don't know, in a kind of team kind of setup. I don't know how you do it, but I love that. I think it's great.
President's Cup, as it were.
Yeah, if you like, it's like a team thing, and I'd encourage anybody. And one of the reasons actually why Team Sweet Chain exists is because I wanted to be on a team, and so. And so let's make a team, right? Let's do it. If you, yeah. So, and then fortunately, I was, lucky enough to have enough people who had a similar kind of value set as myself, and a similar kind of set of beliefs in what we were doing, and were happy to at least associate themselves with the team, and rep the logo and whatever. And I'm sure that's the same for pretty much many other teams when they're out starting. If you've got a sponsorship with a company where that sponsorship is paying your livelihood, then that's no real different. I mean, sponsorship or being like part of a team, it doesn't really make. They're very similar for me. I mean, it'd be like, I know you're representing, you're playing yourself, and sometimes you're directly in competition with people on the same team as you. But I don't think it makes a difference. Honestly. I think Team LFG are just as legitimate as the Bogey Brothers or Team Discraft. Ultimately it's the same thing. It's a group of people with a similar set of values who want to be associated with each other and a brand that they've made up. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. And actually Stephen makes a great point that the teams go deeper than that. And actually, when a team's been around for a long time, it does. Because you're absolutely right. One of the whole points of kind of having a team is that you're not on your own anymore, right? You've got someone or some people who can help you out. That could be logistically when it comes to like, I need a couch to crash on, or it could be mentally. It could be someone who's there to have a chat with you in between, even during a round, to kind of get your head back in the right space. So I think, look, if you want to be on a disc golf team, then be on a disc golf team. I think it's absolutely great, and I wouldn't say they're a bad thing in any way. Nico.
Very nice. Well, you can always be my friend, Matt. I will always play with you, and I'm happy to be on your team.
It's not what I was fishing for, but
Yeah, I was going to say, speaking of teams and of Discraft, there's a new video coming out next week, is there not?
Well, it's a bit more than a video. I mean, we're going to show you a video in a minute, but like it's a documentary, and it's Paige Pierce has been filming this. It was all last year, so think back to Worlds 2021 is where it kind of culminates. And it's a documentary which has come out, and unfortunately, I've been lucky enough to kind of follow the journey of the production of this documentary on a maybe a bit closer than I might otherwise would. And it's been an absolutely incredible undertaking, and I know that Paige is quite keen to get this documentary onto platforms such as Netflix or Amazon or something like that. If there's a kind of enough, seem to be have enough kind of traction to be able to get it to a wider audience, and that was certainly the intention of the documentary when it was being filmed. And actually, if you go back to the episode when she was on the show, that was episode 60, I want to say. No,
20 weeks ago.
No, it wouldn't have been 60, was it? It would have been 55. It was around episode 50 to 55. Go onto our YouTube channel and check it out. While you're there, hit subscribe, and you have a look at the Paige Pierce video. She talks a little bit about the documentary in that. And anyway, so if you're keen to know more, it is available on the Disc Golf Network. You do get a discount if you are already a subscriber to the Disc Golf Network. It's not very much. It's only like probably less than a tenner to buy the documentary. Once you've bought it, the tickets are available for a limited amount of time. Once you've bought it, you can watch it forever. They're not going to take it away from you. So, my advice: buy it, get together a watch party, get some pizzas and some beers in, and then settle down. We're going to let's get the documentary up in front. That's what we're going to do anyway. We're going to try and have a.
I was going to say that sounds like an offer, Matt. So you doing a watch party at yours then with these pizza and beers? Is that a thing?
Yeah. Go on then. Let's see if we can make that happen. As many of you,
if you're watching, put in the comments. Give us a thumbs up if you know it's okay to do a watch party of the documentary.
As many of you know, we're in the process of moving studio, so we're no longer going to be in the studio I'm in now. We're going to be moving.
Park. What's wrong with Harcourt Park?
Oh, well, you say that, but in just under a month's time, we're going to be moving to a new location. And so you'll see the return of old favorites such as the Disc Wall and the Sign. For those of you, for those new viewers, that you perhaps won't recognize it, but many of the old guards. Anyway, let's get on with watching. This is the trailer for the documentary. So yeah, if you like what you see, go and give it a watch.
Paige Pierce has to go for this, and really has to make this. She's one shot away from winning her 6th world title and becoming the most winning woman to ever play the game.
I heard so many times that you can't say that to an 8-year-old. You can't say that to a 6-year-old. You're going to train them hard. I mean, Rocky's Rocky, right? That's what it is.
He's kind of the tough love kind of dad. And so it's always kind of been something where he's like pushing me. It doesn't sound like love, but I know it is. And he's just like, come on, you got better than that.
She knows that. She knows that. I know she knows that. Because, anyway.
Typically, one of the people that's out there putting the hammer down is Paige Pierce. And this weekend, unfortunately for her, just not a factor.
Back-to-back first-time champions over on the women's side. That's pretty cool. I mean, I think it bodes well for our women's division.
You can surpass me because look at where this wasn't here when I started. I got here because I kept pushing past where the limit was. You can do the same thing. She wants the competition for herself, but she wants it for the general disc golf community. She just wants it to grow as fast as possible.
I think we all kind of feel it, and it's on its way for sure. Maybe mainstream, but at least way bigger than any of us could have ever imagined.
Oh, I've watched it happen to so many people that get just fully hooked You know, as soon as they I guess they hit a shot or it feels good. Finally, they don't throw it up in the air. They throw one straight, and I don't know the exact process that takes place, but it seems to excite people in a way that they're never going to stop playing.
I thought Paige got roasted. She got roasted pretty hard, and I think she deserved it, honestly.
My question to you, PJ, is why do you keep doing this to the women's division?
It's the U.S. Women's Championship. It should be treated the same way from the PGA perspective as the U.S. Disc Golf Championship, which is the men's title.
They say, like, you're the greatest of all time, but in my mind, that is not true. There are 2 other women that I'm tied with. Until I get that 6th world title, that is still up for debate. So this is so important to me to cement my name in disc golf history as the most winning woman to ever play the game.
There we go. Tingly. I'm looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it. It's going to be. I mean, I've been kind of following this for some time, so really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it definitely gives me chills. Just like when she first came to Discraft and she announced the like new sponsor and that kind of stuff, like the relationship that she has with her dad, and like, yeah, always trying to push the sport and get better, you know, like not only for her, but for everybody else, you know, like the fact that, you know, like her and Paul just pushing and pushing and pushing and making moves. And it's like, you know, foot on the gas, come get me. Yeah, that documentary is going to be great. That it looks like they've pulled in everyone from all corners. It should be such a great documentary.
Yeah, and it's produced. It's not a case of the fact that it's been produced by a disc golfer who happens to also own a video camera, right? It's a production company who were approached to do a documentary, and the guy who produced and is a director is a documentary maker. That's what he does, which is why it's got that kind of look of kind of, it looks proper, if you know what I mean. Like it looks like it should, at least in the trailer. Look, really looking forward to that. So yeah, looking hopefully that will be an absolute crackerjack when that comes out. So look out for that one. Right. One last thing before we go, Brady. Now, with lots of disc golf being played in the ladies division, there's been a little bit of a change in the
power rankings, right?
Hey! So, let's have a look at the power rankings. First up, let's have a look at some upcoming events. So the Midwinter Classic is this weekend in Dunedin. And in the middle of the Dunedin Sandwich is the Blood Sacrifice at the Confluence next week, followed by the Cold Snap Open, and then the Paul Macbeth Foundation fundraiser, which is held all over the country. If you're in the capital, it's in Petone on the 3rd of September. So make sure you sign up for that disc golf scene and search Paul Macbeth Foundation fundraiser, and you'll see a whole heap of different events. $20 to enter. It's going to be a great day. Flex Start. We're combining it with Hosker that week, which we'll get to in a second. Then the Tauranga Extreme at the end of September, Armageddon, Topol, Thermal Throwdown, Beffels, Wahitapu, Fault Line rounds out the year, and then some big tournaments next year. Anyway, let's see the rankings change. So the biggest changes here, Charlotte Dunkley moves 2 spots up to 5th following her win in Auckland. Eilish Kumak came 2nd at Auckland, so she moves up 4 places to 8th. Kath Headley came tied. There's a 3-way tie in Wellington for the lead between Nicola Stout, Kath Headley, and Sue Brown. And so what we saw was Kath Headley. Sorry, no, it wasn't. It was Bonnie O'Neill. My apologies. Bonnie O'Neill, Nicola Stout, and Kath Headley all tied. And then Paul Wilson was 1 shot back. So they, so you see Kath Headley moving up 7 spots to 16th. And Bonnie O'Neill is a new entry in 15th. The change of power rankings. Go on.
Can you see, like, I know it's back end and that kind of stuff. Like, I don't see Nicola Stout in the top 20.
Yeah, she's at 6th. She's 6th there.
Oh, is she? Okay, never mind. Sorry, she's just way too up. I was looking farther down. I figured as much. I'm like, man, like she's been playing like really well. She should be up.
Yeah,
like, because I'm rather amused by the top 4, right? Because like Haley Flintoff still playing, Leanna injured, Michelle in the States, Gemma, Mama number 2. She's got 2 bubs now, I think. So like the idea that Haley's still playing, but like you have Charlotte, Nicola, Amy, like those are the 4 that we arguably say more on the show, yet still haven't quite cracked that top 4 ranking.
Well, so the way in which the power rankings work here is that there's 2 points at play. Every time you play in a tournament, your kind of ranking number, if you like, which isn't a linear scale, but it's a ranking number, and the higher the number, the higher your or lower your ranking, I should say. Every time you play in a tournament, that gets assessed, and your placing compared to everybody else who played in the tournament and where they are already ranked gets kind of mushed together and then spat out the end, right? So, for example, if you played in a tournament with a bunch of people who are really, really, really good, or if, let's say I played in a tournament against the people in the top 5 on the MPO list, and I beat them all, right? Bear with me. Then my points would shoot up. Now, I might not have enough to get into that top 5 because up to now I've been pretty invisible. But the idea is that it takes into account the quality of the opposition that you play in your particular event, and then takes that forward. So you don't just get a set number of points for each for winning an event or coming first or second or first. It depends on the quality of the opposition and the ranking prior to the event of the other people playing in the tournament that you both won and lost to. Right. Okay. So that's the first thing. It's quite a complicated equation that the analytics team put together, but it works. It seems to work, and I can actually know that it works. But anyway, the other thing that gets applied is an overlay gets applied on that, which says, right, if you've played fewer than this number of tournaments in this amount of time, reject. Right. And the reason for doing that is that we don't want like Jeremy Colling to be ranked number 1 where no one can overtake him, because it doesn't make any sense that we do that, right? And and the same reason for Justin Workman, he would be still up there. And I think Damien Peters would still be in the top 5 because he had such a ranking at some point that it's hard for people to overtake that kind of score, if you like. But because he hasn't played in a sanctioned event in New Zealand for some time, then his ranking has kind of fallen away. Which is why you might see on occasion people just disappear from the top 20. Likelihood is they just haven't played enough events in the last period of time to still qualify. Now, the minute they do, when they play their next event, they'll probably get activated again, and they'll go back into the rankings where they were with the change for the event that they've just played. So that's kind of more or less how it works. If you want to know a bit more about that, then maybe we'll do a bit of more of a private session, because it's going to be boring for the vast majority of people who don't care about maths or Excel. I mean, I don't know who you are, but anyway, right. So that is us for this week. So lots of things to do. Go and check out the Women's Global event results from last weekend. Go and check out the Nico Castro incident. Go and have a look at Small Bore Outlaws Disc Golf channel, and watch the Fierce Disc Golf documentary on Disc Golf Network. Wherever you're playing disc golf this week, take it easy, play well, get some birdies, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.